Well, who was Diane 3? We good? All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Committee of the Whole meeting for November 23rd. Call the meeting to order, and anybody wish to declare conflicts? Your mic. Yeah, thank you.
I'm not declaring one right now, but I reserve the right to declare one later if things go that way.
All right, thank you. We have an agenda before us. Any amendments, corrections, etc.? And if not, a motion to adopt the agenda. Councillor Toth, Councillor Bell, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. We then move to item 5.1 on the agenda. And Council, we have short-term rentals matter before us. Staff, is there anything you want to comment on before we discuss this? No? Was that a no?
Thank you, Your Worship. Staff are pleased to observe and answer questions from committee, should there be any.
Okay, very good. All right. If I may, I'd like to open the discussion on short-term rentals just by clarifying some of the emails that we've received over the last few days from the public. Speaking for myself, I'm totally supportive of the bylaw that is before us. We have to carefully and proactively protect the community from problems and be sure that the short-term rentals are a contributor to our community. But my issue, and why I raised this about 2 weeks ago, I guess, is my issue is solely with how we implement those the bylaws to be sure the end results are effective. So I also want to thank staff for all the hard work on this file. I know it's been underway for some months or maybe even years. I do recall when I was chair of the Chamber of Commerce, encouraging council and council, of course, to focus on enforcement, and that's something that I think we can still do a better job of, but we'll get into that in a few minutes. So with that, I open it for comments and questions. Councillor Bell, please.
So I wanted to just start with commending the staff and the past council as well for their hard work on this. It's a tremendous amount of work that I see and the reports that have been generated. And I want to thank the members of the community for taking the time to participate in the public engagement process. There was a tremendous turnout, and that is greatly appreciated. I know that it's been a challenging process to get to this point, as there's been a number of competing interests, but I feel that the guiding priorities used to determine the regulations have ensured that there's a diversity and balance of accommodations exist to support all aspects of the economy and the community. Saying this, I have a question and something I would like noted for future reference. Earlier, I asked the question about a phase-in period, which was shown in one of the reports, and I just reached out to the staff because my concern was whether there was staff time and resources to be able to implement the plan in the current time frame. And I just wonder if you could comment about that.
Sure. Thank you, through Your Worship, and great question, Councillor Bell. So in terms of implementation and rollout, for those who seeking to renew business license or create a new business license for the type 1 in-home, the traditional bed and breakfast, if you will, or type 2, a suite or separate cottage, can proceed effective immediately. That will roll over and carry on the same as per a regular business license renewal from year to year because the program remains the same. The fees have been increased, however. And so the phase-in then relates to the category 3, the secondary residence or the unhosted house, and how we will manage that. So while bylaws are technically adopted, it's not as if non-compliances will be sought on January 1st or January 2nd right away. We recognize there's a build-in and a phase-in program, and should we carry on as directed by council resolutions and bylaws, we will be sending out notice to license holders very soon, formally acknowledging the change. Recognizing that our business license compliance was certainly less than 100%, we'll have to find ways to get out to other operators, social media, print media, email distribution, asking license holders to assist in that regard. So there's a number of things there. Should we go the route of the temporary use permit, we'll be seeking folks to make application in the month of January. You may have seen a report that Town of Gibson staff did. It's a two-step process in that regard, but it's a batch report where, in that case, they had 22 applicants. All applicants were vetted, put on the same report. There was a spreadsheet that indicated the matrix. They even had a bit of a statement where each had written in a little bit about who they are, their operation plan, presenting that to council, allowing council to make decision. We anticipate that to happen in February. All things going well and as planned, which would allow, and a temporary use permit effectively is a permit. We'll have to pre-draft a permit. Each one will receive their own permit. Some, depending on site-specific scenarios, may receive different criteria, different conditions. So undoubtedly, yes, a lot of work for staff, no question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then I just have one final comment. I'd really like to see us in this process commit to monitoring and evaluation so that we have the data to be used to help us evaluate on the impact of the desired goals. Related to both the community, which is about the neighborhood compatibility, are we seeing happy neighborhoods, and et cetera, and then economy. What, if any, is the impact on our tourism and small businesses? And perhaps that certainly can be looked at a later date by working with our community associations, Downtown Business Association, and Sunshine Coast Tourism. But I really want to emphasize how important I feel that this monitoring and evaluation is done on a regular basis. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Bell. Other comments? Councillor McLaughlin, please.
Although I only have a license for a bed and breakfast from 2015 to 2022 that I haven't used since COVID, and also due to water limitations. It was not considered an STR, but now B&Bs have been thrown into the same STR policy. So I'm just cautiously speaking on that. I just want to emphasize, I think it's important that we are discussing more ways to use water. That's what we're talking about here with implementing STRs. And when we haven't even solved the problem, I believe we need to have water meters first. And that we need to ensure that we have water to drink, bathe, and flush our toilets before we proceed with any STRs at this point. It's not business as usual. We don't even know if we have enough water to get through the winter, and we don't have enough water in the spring or summer. We know that. We all ran on the water issue, and we have to take care of taxpayers first. We have to put some of these things, perhaps like SCRs, on hold. And if that's the case, so be it, until water is assured. So I think once we have water, some water assured, perhaps we could follow the Gibson's lead, where they only allowed a certain type of SCR that are within houses that are carefully monitored. They have an aquifer, and they also have water meters. So they have things much better under control than we do. We don't know what Mother Nature has in store for us, and we've been warned about the impacts of global warming. The SRID World Oceans Day on June 9th, CO Committee of the Whole meeting, said that we were experiencing impacts that were projected for sea shelf in 2050, and we're experiencing those now. So I feel those are not being taken seriously. So we are waiting for a water strategy from the SRD. We don't have it yet. We are waiting for meters in sea shelf. We don't have them yet. We are waiting for rain and for Chapman Lake to recover, and it may not recover. The STR policy is from the last council, with some good analysis, but in my opinion, the wrong conclusion. And as a new council, I think we need to carefully step back and review this. And also, I want to point out that the short-term rentals report done by a consultant called Examining Issues and Options in the District of Fischelt, page 23, says, competing demands for housing and tourist accommodations in residential areas cannot be met at the same time. So what do we want? Do we want accommodations for our residents, or do we want STRs? This is the question. And I, for one, want to say I want accommodations and water for residents.
Okay.
I could go on. I have a lot of ideas about how to write the regulation, but the question is whatever it is today, and so I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McLaughlin. Councillor Shepherd.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm speaking in support of the existing bylaw and the staff proposals for implementing the bylaw, because I want to keep the process moving here. I think a lot of people are, on both sides of the issues, want factual data for the number of types of STRs. I think it's unfortunate that Ecoplan International didn't do that. It probably wasn't in their scope of work. So since both sides want that, let's keep going with the process, because it's very easy to say, let's delay it for another year, and I think that's the wrong decision. I think, so I really would like to press ahead with it. And as you can see, as Mr. Allens mentioned, most of the STRs in town are of type 1 and a certain number of type 2. So in approving the process in the existing bylaw, moving ahead with it, we're actually allowing those to proceed with no problem. It's some of the type 2 and the type 3 which are the problem. So I will vote for moving ahead with the existing bylaw. And I'll say one final thing. The more, I think Councillor McLaughlin takes, certainly has a more ardent feel for environmental measures. But I have to say, through this whole, as we're now still in stage 4 water restriction, and we could be in water restriction in the spring in phase 4, I'm really moving more towards her view of keeping water as a priority. It's turning into such a difficult issue. It's not being solved or hasn't been solved yet, that I commend her for bringing forth those comments. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Inkster.
I would say to the mayor, the presiding member, who was also at the regional district, when the water comes up, perhaps, if possible, that if there's updates for the council, because it sounds like it's going to be reoccurring. A number of us are there. We've talked about it. We've seen some solutions. One of the questions I would have is when meters are coming. So it's a conversation that I want to have, that I wanted to mention to you about having at the regional district, to get that information for myself, because it would be good to know when meters are coming, because that would be a way to track the water, because no matter what use is made of these homes that are in discussion, whether it's long-term or short-term, there needs to be a meter to determine how much water is being consumed and charge accordingly. So there's arguments made that if you have a commercial aspect to it, that you can afford to have more water used by however many people are there for the weekend or whatever, but it would be good to know when meters are coming so that we have those measuring devices. In reference to the larger issue at hand here, I had mentioned previously that looking at the bylaw, a couple of minor tweaks that I would mention, but that could be, and I'm comfortable with it being part of the bylaw moving forward, because the community has expressed concerns over it not moving forward, and would really like to see it moving forward to allay some of the concerns and the fears in the community that have occurred result of some issues over the last number of years. So I, like a number of other council members, we can discuss those other issues through the process and through the measuring that is mentioned by other council members, but I'm comfortable with, in a sense, moving it forward will make the community more comfortable and more at rest. And I'm interested to see what Councillor Bell's happy index is. I'm looking forward. Okay. She may be our base then. So
thank you, Councillor Inkster. Maybe just you've introduced a number of things. I can give Council a bit of an update on the water situation currently. There was a meeting at the SCRD of the Emergency Operations Center, and because it's raining, that's helping, because we have, they've discovered some, I guess the creek, because of various natural events, widens and narrows, and that's had an impact on the measuring of the flow of water. And so we actually, at the moment, and I emphasize at the moment, we have plenty of water going over the measuring, the weir, over the, weir. Yes, thank you. The chair recognizes. Councillor Toth, jump in, please. Save me.
Thank you. Yeah, we've got plenty of water flowing in the creek right now. The lakes are still not full, and they're, it's possible they won't refill until the snow that's accumulating up there melts, for sure. Given that the water that we're receiving from the Chapman system is falling below the dam, we have no means of storing that water. And I believe the last we heard, we were sitting somewhere around 300 liters per second in the creek.
It's actually higher. Yesterday it was higher, but so we have lots of water at the moment, but this is the dilemma. I think in theory, please don't do this, but you could go out and pressure wash your sidewalks and wash your cars and do everything that is prohibited in stage 4 right today because it's been raining. But if it stops raining, which I think it might have, you need to stop right now. So, it's a strange and unparalleled time. I agree with Councillor McLaughlin. Water continues to be the priority. It certainly is for me. At the same time, we have to carry on with the rest of our community priorities, and I think we can, and I'm certainly committed to doing both. We can have solutions to water. I said that in my inaugural comments, and I repeat them. I think if there's a benefit to come out of all of this, it is that people are more inclined in various regulatory groups to approve innovative and perhaps some more aggressive approaches than might have been considered in the past. So, not to go on too much about water, but I think the issue is much bigger than a few hundred short-term rentals. So I think we have to focus on, today the agenda item relates to the short-term rental issue, and I'd suggest we address that particularly. Councillor Toth.
I just wanted to add, because Councillor Inkster asked it specifically, the meters tender is supposed to be going out imminently, but from everything that I've understood up there, it's going to take most of 2023 to install them all, just the way the rollout's going to happen. But between, leak resolutions and heightened awareness in our community, we are at record low water consumption in the Chapman Water Treatment Plant. So it's actually approaching its bottom operational limit. So that's all I wanted to chime in on that.
Did you want to comment on the topic at hand? Okay. Councillor Rose said she'll talk.
I have some questions for Director Allen, I suppose. Just a couple questions on criteria. First of all, thanks for the report. When we talk about neighborhood fit, is that the catchment area of notifications in the neighborhood of the application, and how would community associations be involved?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think fundamentally neighborhood fit is subjective. It's not quite a particular metric that says this is or is not a fit, but it's largely would be driven by notifications. A standard practice of temporary use permits would be to notify property owners within a radius. We can build in referrals to community associations as well for feedback, comment. And that's where we get a little bit more of that local knowledge that we collectively as staff and council may not be aware of operations on certain streets that do work well, do not work well, and we can get that feedback, and that fits into that metric.
Okay. And when we talk about a property manager proximity, are we going to set benchmarks like, you know, they should respond to a complaint within X, a time frame, like that kind of piece? Is that what we're thinking?
I think it's about accountability and somebody being reachable, and ideally having a local management plan. There could be occasions where it's 3 a.m. and whatever is occurring is more of an RCMP matter.
Correct.
Than it is for an individual operator of a management company. So we need to have some understanding of that. That said, if there is a management company, pardon me, or an individual, we would expect that they're reachable and can be at the site to resolve the problem as soon as possible, even if that might be the next morning in some cases.
Okay. And with regards to, I'm just curious, with the number of guest rooms, what we were thinking there, as far as the criteria for selecting?
Number of rooms was not specifically identified, nor maximum number of guests. That becomes difficult, whereupon you could potentially have official guests at an Airbnb, and let's say they're in town for a family wedding, for example, and there's other guests at another facility somewhere in town, but they assemble for a barbecue dinner. You know, that trying to figure out and ascertain who's there, who's not there, isn't something we're set up to do for a Saturday night, or even a Thursday night for that matter, right? It's a little more tricky.
Okay.
The zoning bylaw 580 does have a maximum size for new dwellings, but we're recognizing that there are
You lost your battery. Nobody's home.
Thank you.
As far as the microphone goes, Director Allen.
Thank you for the clarification.
Order. I'm sorry, I can't help it myself. Okay, so as I remain supportive of this bylaw and the work the staff has done and the implementation, I just want to clarify back to the time frame that you were discussing. So if this comes back to us, back to council in February, and we issue temporary use permits by April 1st, or just to throw it out there. So if that STR then is operating from January to April without a business license, correct?
Essentially, yes, that is correct. It's part of the transition process here that we're trying to establish.
Okay.
I think that's an important and a good word. I wish I'd said it first. This is about transitioning from where we're at today to full implementation of the spirit of this bylaw. And I think that's certainly where I'm coming from, is how do we get from today to that point in a way that frankly doesn't punish people, that incentivizes people to do the things that we think are best for the community. Councillor McLaughlin.
So this is about also supply of water, but demand for water. And controlling SDRs, it allows us to control that demand, which I think is critical and not something we really talk about. And I was just wondering, through the chair to Andrew, did you consider the number of SDRs in a radius of lots to reduce the density of SDRs? Say in Sandy Hook or someplace like that.
Sorry, I'd like to clarify. So the question relates to, because you've mentioned water, but that's somewhat separate to density.
Well, it's to do with demand, and the density.
Okay.
So was that ever considered?
Maybe I can address the water thing first. We're talking about potentially 200 short-term rentals in Sechelt, plus or minus. We're not really sure, but something like that. So the utilization of water by short-term rentals in comparison to the overall population is very tiny. Councillor Allen, Director Allen, as far as density?
Sure. Absolutely. During the review process, we did certainly consider that in terms of neighborhood fit being the primary guideline But it's difficult to say there can be no more than 10 in Sandy Hook, or there could be no more than 2 on any particular road. Sometimes neighborhood boundaries themselves are a little bit less clear, subjective perhaps. So we were ultimately reluctant to say there can only be certain amounts in each neighborhood and that they have to be a certain distance from one another. And this is where neighborhood fit becomes a little bit more subjective through the temporary use permit application process and community, neighborhood, and community association feedback, I think was how we felt it would ultimately be the best fit.
Okay.
Thank you.
Perhaps the community didn't get that sense that they had been considered that way. Also, we don't know how many STRs there will be. We've been told that there could be an unlimited number of STR licenses approved, unlimited. So that means could be an unlimited demand. Also, what will be the cost of water meters to the citizens of Sechelt? I think that's a question on a lot of our minds.
Councillor McLaughlin, that's not part of the
well,
topic.
And it relates to also...
Councillor McLaughlin, thank you. We'll move on. We'll stay on the topic.
Will there be additional costs for meters for SDRs is my question.
I don't think we're in a position to answer that.
Yeah, I was going to offer that would be a discussion for the board table at the SCRD.
Right.
But it also affects the costing and the pro forma for anybody running an STR, I believe. Will there be a BC business license required to run a STR? A BC business license?
Councillor McLaughlin, if you do address your questions to me, please.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Will there be a BC business license? As far as I can recall from looking at applications in the past, it was not required.
A BC business license?
Yes, to say that you're running an STR as a business and your income is relating to that. Well, there's also a BC business license you get if you're running a business.
There's you need to be incorporated and file some sort of depending on whether you're a corporation or a business, it might be a tax registration.
Yes, and there would be a number for that. So is that number required on the application? That's important, I believe.
To be a registered entity, yes. That's
to run a business.
Yes. I think we could certainly ask for that, or do you hold the proper registrations as we would for any business? Thank you. Because
we want to control the number of illegal STRs, and that's one way to do it. And I was wondering what number of buildings could be on site for, say, a type 3 STR for accommodations.
How many buildings?
How many with bedrooms
units?
And units can you have? Good.
Director Allen. Well, that's an interesting question. There is a provision for having 2 units as a type 2 if we have a principal operator on site, and that being applicable for the temporary use permit process as well. Ultimately, it needs to match the zoning. Primarily, the zoning for these properties is residential. Short-term rental is an accessory use primary to the principal use of the property, which is residential. And that's also part of the balance we're trying to find. So if your zoning allows for a single detached dwelling, then it shouldn't be essentially converted into several motel units. It should be a single detached dwelling unit. And we're trying to strike that balance through this permitting process as well.
Mm-hmm. So with a temporary use permit for type 3, you could have a house that you have as a short-term rental. You could have a suite in that house as a short-term rental, and you could have an auxiliary dwelling unit that you could have as a short-term rental. That could be, I don't know how many bedrooms or how many buildings, but that's the zoning.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a good point, and it highlights some of the uncertainties that we still have in implementing this bylaw, which is, again, back to the transition. To contemplate all the variables, to me, is still something that concerns me.
Yeah.
I'd just like to give, are you ready, Councillor Toth? And we can come back to Councillor McLaughlin, please.
Thank you. Just referring to the comment that was made about potentially unlimited demand, we as a council are going to be approving the temporary use permits. So we as a council are going to be determining the limit. It was 15 by council resolution previously, but that was just council resolution. It wasn't part of the bylaw. It could be more, it could be less, depending on how things shape up and what sort of responses we get when people apply. Going into this meeting, I was starting to feel some concern around the timeline, given that business licenses run from January 1st to December 31st. And we've got short-term rentals that might have bookings in February or March. So I was starting to feel some concern around whether we could have something in place in time, you know, for the operators. So I was really glad to hear Director Allen's comments around, you know, transition. We're not looking at a hard and fast January 1st start handing out tickets. This is going to be a transition. It is going to be a process. So I'm happy to support it moving forward as is under the sort of timeline that is being proposed, with the recognition that it is a sort of a soft transition. It's not a hard and fast date. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I guess the issue I'm aware of, certainly from the emails we've received, is that the short-term rental operators, if they are disqualified or refused in April, have a number of bookings that are already taking. And that was, I think, highlighted in emails we got today. So I think there's a longer tail to this that we need to be mindful of for our operators. Councillor McLaughlin, please.
Just in closing, I want to say ongoing water use and perhaps excessive demand is bad for our economy and bad for the reputation of the Sunshine Coast. The only thing worse than not being able to book a STR or bed and breakfast is having to cancel your bookings due to no water. There are severe penalties on booking platforms. I just want to state that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Other comments? Okay, so maybe I'm still concerned, and I think if anything, I'm more concerned from the discussion because of the unknowns. Councillor McLaughlin, you've introduced an idea that there could be a type 3 with several different units on one property. We're not really sure what that magnitude is. We have other situations where this could drive some of our operators underground. I never like a policy that punishes people for not complying. I prefer if we can find ways to incentivize people to do what we feel is best for the community. I think and I think that's a problem we face right now. The election, to be fair to staff, kind of put everything on hold for at least a month or 6 weeks. And the end of the year didn't move. That's coming. And yet you weren't able to carry on as staff with some of the implementation. So I have real concerns that if we are telling our operators that they might be disqualified in February or March or April or May, that they will carry on because they will just ignore us, or we will shut them down, and that will impact the image of Sechelt. So my recommendations about the transition are that we do find a way to accommodate the operators. I'm not sure procedurally how we would do that. What I wrote and provided to all of you a couple of weeks ago wasn't meant to be a final document. It was a working document. Oh, I did want to add one other thing. I have to say, I'm very disappointed with the short-term rental operators, those that chose to take legal action. I think that was a poor choice, and I hope that they will withdraw that action. I don't think it served any purpose to take that step. So I wanted to make that point. But my fundamental thing is the devil is in the details here and how we transition. And I fear that we are going down a road, if we do oblige people to apply and we keep them waiting until March potentially, or I don't know, we don't know how long before we can get that it will have unintended consequences. Councillor Inkster.
So the next item on the agenda is the recommendations presented in reference to this bylaw. Mm-hmm. I would say to the presiding member, if in fact those are introduced and passed, as I'm hearing that it probably will be by the support and the work put in by a couple of council members previous. What then would you introduce after it is passed to meet your needs? Because clearly it's probably going to go forward, as I said. And what then would you add to that or introduce if you have in future to deal with some of your concerns? Because otherwise they would just be hanging and we would obviously just continue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's at the will of council. So I'd rather not prejudge the vote on a particular issue. But I think that, again, it's about making sure we don't make matters worse for the community. And I'm just hearing there's so many variables in this that continue to concern me. So would we increase the 15? I don't know if that achieves, Councillor Inkster, it's a good point. I probably need a few minutes to think about how I'd respond to that. Councillor Toth, please.
Just thank you. Just as a sort of technical question or what observation, does anybody know how far out, VRBO, Airbnb, et cetera, accept bookings? We're talking about, being worried about disrupting operators in March for the summer if they're not approved. But if you can book 2 years out, it could be a 4-year phase in to make sure that you're not disrupting anybody. And I'm not familiar enough with the platform to know how far out you can book.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. I'm looking around, but I know that many of us, including my wife, are planning for their vacation next year. I'm not sure I'm invited, but that's a whole other discussion. And so my focus is certainly on this coming summer. Interesting point, but okay. One last thing from me is the comment that anything in the short-term rental bylaw will increase the long-term rentals. First of all, I think we don't have evidence to confirm how many, if any, would convert to long-term rentals. And I want to observe and acknowledge the province. They're finally, it seems, bringing some effort into determining how to build enough new housing for rentals. So that's, but they're sort of separate issues, I guess. If we get 1 or 2 additional long-term rentals, that's great, but it isn't going to be a panacea to solve the need for a substantial increase in long-term rentals. Councillor Toth.
And just speaking from sort of where we started this process, it wasn't really so much about, reclaiming all these short-term rentals to be long-term tenants. Mm-hmm. It really was primarily focused around sort of giving our neighborhoods back to the community. Whether an operator will try and go underground with their rental, or whether they'll do long-term tenancy, or whether they will leave it empty, there are always ways to work around them. If people are choosing to just leave units empty, that's a decision they have to make as a property owner, of course. They can sell, they can rent them out long-term, they can leave them empty, pending anything else that might come in, like a speculation tax province-wide or something like that, right? So we'll see. Okay. Looking around, Councillor Bell.
Again, I think for me, it's really about, I want to move forward with a decision, and my concern is really around our ability to do this. I have no doubt that the staff can do it. It's not about their capability. It's about the resources it's going to take. Is it going to be top heavy in the beginning part? And I just don't want it to become a hot mess. We're not able to manage this. I want this to be a successful rollout. So that I just want to caution. It's a big project. There's a lot to consider, and I definitely do want to move forward. I don't want to put this on hold, but I just want to caution.
Okay, so
I'm not giving it. I'm not giving.
What is the caution?
The caution is just the timing of it. in terms, or more about, okay, if we move forward, are we going to move forward with the early January 2023? I like the transition. I think the transition works for me as well, in terms that we have that soft transition. My concern as well is that we were going to start looking at enforcement very quickly and hard enforcement. And I've heard now that that'll be a soft transition because we have to be able to manage this. So I'm comfortable with that in terms of what's in front of us.
Okay.
So I just wanted to hear myself say that, really.
There's all kinds of microphones blinking over there, but could I clarify with Director Allen, the TUPs that are contemplated in the bylaw, are they a one-year TUP or a three-year TUP? Kyle.
The initial.
No. Okay, you're on there. Good.
This is one, hello? Okay, this is the one that wasn't working earlier. The initial contemplation was that they could be 2 to 3 years. That's the standard practice for TUP. Albeit standard, we don't issue too many TUPs, but the last couple that we have issued in the District of Sechelt, unrelated to this topic, have been 3-year TUPs and been renewed. But it's council discretion. If it was a shorter period of time, that could be considered as well.
Okay. And the $3,000 and the other would be per year or for the 3-year TUP?
The TUP is the singular application fee. The business license fee is per year.
Right. So an operator that gets one of these would pay $3,000 and have 3 years to operate.
Correct. $3,000 per year.
$3,000 per year.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's the clarification.
But the TUP is a one-time fee.
Oh, right. That's
for the 3 years.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. Councillor Inkster, thank you for your patience.
Yes, thank you. I think Councillor Bell is speaking to organizational capacity at the District of Sechelt. We obviously could reach out to the town of Gibsons as they're implementing this ahead of us to see how, as a smaller community, with it looks like a number of them, as has been reported, coming down their pipe, how they're dealing with it. Because, and also too, I'm quite sure that the 2 council members, as part of the previous administration, with discussions with staff, have determined that we have enough organizational capacity to implement this bylaw.
I'm looking for, nobody's nodding over there, but I think that's a fair comment, Councillor Inkster. Councillor McLaughlin, please.
I was just wondering how else TUPs have been used by the District of Sechelt for other applications.
Please. Okay.
A TUP was utilized for the Pedals and Paddles kayak shop in the Sandy Hook, Tewanek area. And then that was deemed to be no longer needed when zoning bylaw 580 was adopted because it was brought into compliance. The Rogue Music Festival in Agricultural Land Reserve on Tyson Road had received the TUP and was extended in 2019, and then COVID came, but I do believe that they did have a festival this past year. So those are the 2 that come to mind immediately. In the past, I can recall TUP's been used for very temporary measures like asphalt batch plants and so forth for construction. The official community plan does contain a series of areas where TUPs could be used, and there's a reference to seasonal use, which could be inferred as seasonal tourist use.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And, Your Worship, if I may, we did clarify with assistance from my staff here, reading the operator's guide. There is a statement within the operator's guide that talks about 1 type 3 use per property. So if, per the discussion a few moments ago, if the zoning allowed multiple dwellings, we would be expecting it to be just a singular use in one of the dwellings.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Sorry, I was just wondering in terms of Gibsons and their TUPs, how long are they allowing those to go? I believe they're phasing them out, the type 3 STRs. That's the purpose of theirs?
Please, Director Allen.
Thank you. I couldn't say for sure right at this moment whether they're 2 years or 3 years, but it's true. They're using a very similar process, and they presented to council quite recently on a 2-step process. So they are just slightly ahead of where we are now and are using a very similar model in terms of evaluation and presentation to council.
Thank you.
And how many type one?
Councillor McLaughlin,
I'm sorry.
please, just a second. Yes, Councillor Shepherd.
Just to reconfirm, their bylaw, they are phasing out non-hosted, unhosted properties over a 5-year period. Is that true?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
I can't clarify specifically the amount of years, but I can say they are taking a more restrictive approach than Sechelt proposes to, yes, in terms of phasing out particularly unhosted and really moving towards what we would consider a type 1, as in a dwelling. They're even having stronger restrictions on the type 2 to protect the rental. Their council took that protecting of the rental accommodation as, I believe, as the number 1 priority. So it's very similar, but not identical.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Shepherd. Councillor McLaughlin.
Oh, I just had a question in terms of how many licenses are allowed for our type 1 SDR? Unlimited.
Unlimited.
That's what I was saying. They're unlimited. And also for a type 2?
Councillor McLaughlin. Please.
Yes.
To me, please.
For type 2?
Mm-hmm.
Unlimited, I believe.
Unlimited.
So
yes.
they are basically unlimited.
Yes.
Type 3 may be limited, but as you say, we haven't even firmed that up. So that is a big concern to me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, council? Anybody got a recommendation they would like to propose? Councillor Rowe.
I will move recommendations 1, 2, and 3 that are encompassed in, maybe I'll just read them because those at home without an agenda maybe don't. So I will move that we endorse the recommendation that short-term rental selection criteria for temporary use permit applications for secondary residential properties as presented in this November 23rd, 2022 report from the Director of Planning and Development and Community Planner, and consideration of type 3 short-term rental TUP applications for secondary residential properties be presented to council in early 2023, and that consideration of type 2, more than 2 units, short-term rental TUP applications for principal residence properties in early 2023.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Rowe. Is that the piece or second? Thank you. Okay, I probably should have started with this procedurally, but any further discussion on this? Clear on the motion? Okay, call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Councillors McLaughlin and myself opposed. The motion carries. Okay, thank you. Is there any matters arising? I've got a suggestion. Take 5? What's wrong? Thank you. No, I think we'll take a break when we're finished with this section, if for Councillor Toth. The issues that concern me remain one of the application process and giving clarity to the people as soon as we can. So you raised something earlier that I said I needed a couple of minutes to think about. So I would like to propose, and I will make a motion, that we increase the type 3 limit from 15 to 50. Hear me out. No, thank you. With the view that is a 1-year commitment, so it doesn't imply anything longer than 2023 short-term rentals. This is to give both staff time to assess the applications and us to approve them without obliging people that are taking bookings now that would have to, as I understand it, refund them, refuse them, step back. So I'm trying to figure out a way to give us time to make this whole system work without punishing people that are trying to do a good job. Councillor Shepherd? I'm sorry, that is a motion, so I should, before we discuss it, see if there's a seconder. Okay, then that dies. Okay. Thank you. That's, you're here, please to listen. That's not appropriate in a meeting. Okay. Councillor Shepherd, did you want to speak to it?
I guess I want to reaffirm why I would vote against it, and it's because, the previous council fought so hard to get a compromise, and the compromise was 15, which didn't satisfy either group, opposed or for it, but, that's a promise that council made to the community, and I think we should stick with it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I can have you removed, sir. I can have you removed if you continue with those sort of comments or exclamations. Okay? Thank you. All right, would you like, council, anything else on this topic? No? Then we'll take 5 minutes, because Councillor Toth wants to. Thanks.
Testing. Hello?
guys ready? Yeah. All right, council, are we, can reconvene? Yeah. Notice it's in my left hand. Yeah, my strong hand. Okay, folks, we'll reconvene, and at 3:56. We'll move on to item 5.2, and we'll hear from our Director of Financial Services, Mr. Douglas.
Thank you, Your Worship. So my report just goes over the pre-approved schedule that had been approved by the previous council back in June. And, it's something that I wanted to bring forward to this council because it does include 2 days of budget conversation. And as we go forward here, I'm getting different information now that the district board may need to meet on the 1st of December, so that pushes kind of our initial plans out a little bit. I also know that the next whole week, the regional board is meeting, so the following week doesn't work for at least 2 members of council. So, initially I just wanted to kind of just go through the dates with council, but I think now we need to look at amending the plan for going out on the budget, just because we're having some co-meetings there and here, and we want to have this open to everybody available to come to our budget meetings. It's I think it's most important. So the schedule there, I've highlighted the three that are causing us a little bit of a problem. The November 25th, the budget book, sorry, that should say the 25th.
25th is...
That should be the 23rd, sorry. 23rd, we were going to hand out the book, but we're about 5 days behind. So we're looking at Monday to get it out to council. We've had quite a few flus go through our department in the last 3 weeks, so we are a little bit behind. And then, the days we want to sit over this, we think that December 1st and November 30th won't really work for us. So we're looking really at that week of the 12th to the 16th of December. We'd like to schedule 2 days. We don't know, everybody's availability. We can send it out by email for everybody to confirm those 2 days, or we can, generally come up with 2 days that work for everybody. And then the third item there is the first day that I do a public session with the public. That would be a Zoom meeting, and we also would like to have, if council wanted to come to that as well, that they are available. So, so initially it was just kind of get a sense on what works for council, if the 30th and the 1st worked, but I think we're looking like the 13th, 14th dates in December.
And for the newcomers and some of us old timers, how big is the book that we'll receive next week?
Well, right now it's 152 pages. It's a book we're going to walk through. It's not intended just to give it to you and then you're supposed to understand the whole book. The idea is we're going to walk through it. It comes in sections. We're going to start day one off with budgeting 101 or finance 101, and probably by the afternoon we'll start getting into the book. And it's laid out very specific, and we'll talk about that on those days.
Okay, thank you. Any comments, Director Inkster? Oh yes, Councillor Inkster.
Okay. Interesting.
Not sure if that's a promotion.
Yeah. we'll talk about that. The dates in here are unclear to me whether that was 22nd or the 22 year or 23 year as one question. And the budget binder that will be presented to us, yeah, it sounds large, but I mean, honestly, most of the items are the same every year. Our flexibility seems to be minimal, but anyway, we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Any issues? I think, so perhaps, don't think we need a motion particularly, but you'll come back to us with, perhaps email, we can agree on meeting dates and then they'll be published, for the public. Is that fair? Director Franks.
Thank you, Your Worship. Actually, technically, we do need a council resolution to set these dates because the 14th is a committee of the whole day now, so we're okay, but the 13th would be a special council meeting that should be scheduled by resolution.
Right. And this is a committee of the whole, so will you be bringing a recommendation on December 7th?
Anything today is a recommendation to council for December 7th, yes, Your Worship.
So, do we have a recommendation? December 13th and 14th?
Well, I wish it was earlier sometimes. I mean, if Tuesday, Wednesday?
Hang on, yeah, there.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah,
Okay.
Recognized? From you?
Please.
Okay, great. That's Tuesday, Wednesday? I wish, and we'll come up with this discussion a little bit later, is that I wish those two meetings budget were a little bit earlier, in the day.
In the day, did you say?
In the day, because I'm not sure what
date.
on the days of the presentations, because. Oh, that's cool. If it is, I would, not want us to set everything to be 3 o'clock. Like it to be a little bit, it gives us flexibility in the length of the meeting.
I think it's meant to be in the morning.
Yeah, the intent is to have 2 full day sessions.
Okay.
And we can either start at 9:30.
Okay.
You know.
Why did I ask for that, right? Went from 3 o'clock where we'd have an end and now it's a full day session. I guess that's my fault. The other question I was asking, clarification on the dates that were presented here. Wait, is that next year or this year?
We're talking about this
December 13th, 14th.
So the dates that were presented there were done by the previous council?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Okay, so you would like a recommendation from us, based on your recommendation, for December 13th and 14th. Okay, thank you. Councillor McLaughlin.
I'm sorry, I'm not clear. Is that November 25th, like this 25th coming up?
Yeah, no, those are,
That's for next year.
you could ignore those. They're now superseded by what we're talking about here.
But yes, it would have been Friday that we'd hand the book out, but we're gonna be till Monday.
Because I'm going to be away, till next Tuesday.
Okay.
I did let staff know that.
We'll be emailing the book out on Monday, or we'll be printing a hard copy, depending on what your wish is on Monday. There's no meeting on Monday, it's just handing out the book for the council.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. Councillor Rowe?
I'll make a recommendation that we set December 13th and 14th for budget deliberations
Okay.
for a full day.
Second, Councillor Bell. Okay, any further discussion on that motion? All in favor? Carried. Okay, thank you. All right, then we move to, item 5.3 on your agenda, and, I think, is there anything you want to add, Director Franks? No,
there are 4 separate options. Excuse me, pardon me. There are 4 separate options there for council to consider, and, it explains those, and, I'm available if anyone has any questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Council? Please.
Thank you.
Councillor Toth.
Thank you. Looking at the schedule proposals that have been put forward, I'm a little concerned with the Friday, Monday combination. Anybody who's going away or, has family obligations, Friday, Monday could be really tough to meet. So I think if we're having Monday meetings, we need the agendas sooner than Friday. I know personally Monday doesn't work for me, but I will make it work if that's the way that council goes on things.
Okay.
So my preference would actually be to leave it on Wednesdays, even if we change the time. Thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Inkster?
Yeah, after you introduced this idea, I spoke to you about it. Some of the arguments presented make a lot of sense, especially on those weeks in which we are away at conventions, which tend to start. We don't necessarily have to cancel the Monday meetings if we go to ABICC or UBCM. Tend to start later on in the week, the really meaty part of the discussion. So this allows us flexibility. It allows us flexibility in other areas to make room for the regional district meetings that are coming up later. And as we did discuss, I do believe that we could have agendas out a little earlier than you had mentioned, because that might put a little bit of a spanner in the works if in fact it's tight till late Friday or whatever. I do know that one or two council members have mentioned that it's difficult to review the information that was presented, but that was coming from people who had reviewed the information presented when they'd said that. So it's obviously available to people in electronic data to have reviewed it. It's just how it comes electronically, so we can, as you know, what's mentioned is that we all get the information and we're able to see the documents, and agendas are short or long, and it's the long ones you may need more time for. So I really think Monday works better, and to be honest, for me, what I've found is that personally and family-wise, Monday is much better working for me. I don't have a lot of flexibility like some people have, so I would ask for council's indulgence to consider that.
Thank you, Councillor Inkster. Councillor Rowe?
I don't have a hard opinion either way, but if we do choose a Monday option, I would want Monday or option 2, where we don't lose any meetings to statutory holidays. And so logistically, I'm not sure. I guess it's all, advertised, so that's not a huge issue. But I just don't want to see us, I think there's a difference of about potentially 4 or 5 meetings. So, I mean, it's over a whole year, but it's still 4 or 5 meetings. So I would, if we go to Mondays, I'd be happier with option 2. And it can be a challenge to get the agenda reviewed in 2 days, particularly if you're new to the game, if this is your first term and you're getting used to it. Those are my comments.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bell?
So my concern is that if we do get the agenda on Friday, to just have the weekend to review, I don't feel that is long enough. I would like to have more time, simply because it is a learning curve right now, big time, and I have to read things more than once. But still, if there is an opportunity that I'm okay with Monday, if we could get the agenda a little bit easier or earlier, if that is possible for the staff. I don't know if we ever have any technical issues, God forbid, I'm sure we don't, but if if they happen over that weekend, then if we get into trouble with getting an agenda early on a Monday, I'm just trying to think of, sort of troubleshoot for anything. So my option would be at this point based on to stay with our current status, unless we can get our agenda earlier than Friday.
Okay. Councillor McLaughlin, please.
I agree with Donna. I'd be willing to move to Mondays if we could get the agenda earlier. Weekends are not, are busy. And I do still work, and I do get a lot of work over the weekend to do starting Monday. So also I believe that it gives the public a proper opportunity to have a chance to review the agenda, which they may not be willing to work all weekend to deal with our issues. So I prefer Wednesdays, but for people's personal lives and whatever reasons, as long as we could get the agenda and have the same, some working days to more than one day to attend the meeting, 2 or 3 working days to review the agenda would be best for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Shepherd?
Sorry, can we ask the staff, whether we can get the agendas earlier? Is that, just to answer the, no.
He said into the microphone.
We can certainly do our best to get them to you as early as possible. It all depends on how things go. And then it's also, how willing you are to back us up if we delay things, because we weren't able to get it, onto an agenda in time. So it does could reverberate with development applications and that sort of thing. But if you're okay with that, we will do our best, yeah.
Councillor Shepherd?
If you're saying it's difficult to do, then let's say it's not possible to do and then make a decision from there. So if we can't get the agendas earlier, then which option do we choose? It seems split, the council on.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Have you all read the reasons, I think, the outline on page 14? I think that's, the substantive point of this is to actually make things easier for staff. So whether that in fact is Friday is what helps, or does it need to be Thursday? I do think it gives staff more time than a Wednesday meeting where they have to get an agenda out 2 days later. So we're in a sense working over a week ahead. This way, hopefully, we could have a meeting on Monday and in some cases have an agenda ready, items following on that for the next Monday's meeting, where right now that doesn't happen. Councillor Inkster?
Yeah, as I mentioned at the beginning of the discussion, this I thought would be the issue, is council having enough days to look over the documents, and then an earlier agenda coming out, if possible, would help with that. My thought is that there may be a slight, the implementation period, it's about a month or a number of weeks, is that everything should back up to meet those earlier agenda dates because everything's backing up. A number of years ago, we introduced Committee of the Whole and then Council, and it started to back up the agenda releases because you weren't having a number of committees, you were having a Committee of the Whole and then Council. So the agenda releases started to back up to meet the earlier times. There's just a transition period I guess I like Director Allen's word. There will be a slight transition period of a change where documents start to back up. And I think that the administrator was saying to us, don't be mad if one item is left off the agenda. Don't be mad at me. But that will happen with a regular agenda as well, that things sometimes don't meet those deadlines. So he's just warning us that under the new rules that could happen, but it's going to happen with a regular agenda. The timing's the same. Thanks.
Okay. All right, Council, what's your pleasure? Councillor Toth, please.
I don't see any other hands up for comment.
Well, yes, I'm sorry, you did, no, you didn't make a motion, that's fine. Thank you.
So I'm going to take a stab here at a motion. I'm going to move option 3, and that's status quo with Wednesdays.
Is there a seconder? Councillor McLaughlin?
What am I doing? I don't need a third one.
Quite right.
I'll be all right.
Okay.
Told you there's a learning curve.
Discussion? You ready for the question? Councillor Shepherd?
As a new councillor, I'm completely confused here. We've got two regional people on the regional council, one who wants to change the agenda and one doesn't. So we're kind of left in a quandary here as to what to do.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Councillor Toth?
Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Shepherd. I can make anything work. Wednesdays actually work better for me. Both sets of agendas come out on the Friday. So that gives me Saturday, I'm actually working elsewhere. So that gives me Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday to review both agendas. I actually regularly go away. I'm out of the region from Friday to Tuesdays, usually. So if there's a particularly contentious issue that's going to be coming up on an agenda, I won't know that I should be here until I'm already out of town. So personally speaking, Wednesday works better for me. I'm willing to go with the majority, but personally speaking, Wednesday actually works better for me.
Councillor Rowe?
I think everyone would just need to be aware as well. You know, I'm not necessarily going to cut a weekend in Vegas short to get back for Monday. So you're going to have more virtual attendance, I think, if we were to do anything on a Monday or a Friday. So not that there's anything, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But, you know, it is kind of nice to be here in person when there's really hot items on the agenda. But I think that is something that will happen if we move it to Mondays.
Okay, Councillor McLaughlin.
I also think it's nice to have the opportunity to be able to have the meetings on Wednesday because it gives us a chance to ask questions to staff, especially being new councillors, and gives them an opportunity as staff to respond to fetter out some of the issues. So I find that very helpful. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, ready for the question? So this is to maintain the status quo and call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Zingster and myself opposed. The motion carries. Okay, anything else? Motion to adjourn? Move second. All in favor?